Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Arizona Coyotes franchise mode here in NHL 22. So in last episode, we had the draft and the re-sign stage, and at the draft, we got some good prospects in. We picked up a couple more lowly prospects for our system, so I'm very excited to see how those guys develop, and hopefully they could become something for our team in the future. As you can see, we brought in McIntyre with our second round pick. He does have some X factors, so hopefully he gets some good growth in his year that he's going to be in the United States, because we aren't going to be signing him just yet. And then also we got Kagorodov in the first round, and he also has some X factors. Looks like he's going to become a good shooter and whatnot. So yeah, very excited to see what those guys could do, and hopefully they could get to the NHL in a few years to give us a little bit more depth scoring and stuff like that going into playoffs and all that type of thing. But anyways, before we get into free agency and starting up the season simulation, we do have a few comments to go over. So the first one is from HawksFan88. He says, I think all you need is a solid backup goalie, and then you should be good to go. So we are definitely going to be picking up a backup goaltender, because we did let go of Jeremy Swayman in last episode, because Swayman was good during the regular season, but his numbers kind of fell off in the second half of the season. And then in the playoffs, he was really not that good. So I decided to let him go. And also because our backup goaltender from last year is now going to be probably a starting goaltender, or if we pick up a goaltender that's actually around an 82 as well, then both of them will kind of split starts. And I don't really want to bring Bolstad back to the NHL, because I don't think he's really NHL caliber, but we will run Peterson with whoever the goalie we sign is. The next comment is from Cody Legaspi. He says, I think a goalie would be a good idea. I like Connor Hellebuyck coming because he's coming off of a good season. He is older. If he drops off a bit, your medium elite goalie jumps up. They could kind of split time. I don't see Hellebuyck dropping this year, so maybe check some goalies for good stats. If you have to make any moves for cap free agents, Vincent Trocheck could be a good value fourth liner. Usually, someone's good. Could see him fitting the team at all, if he fits the team at all. I believe he has good faceoffs. Alex Nylander's a good value pickup for $800K for 2 years, but more of an offensive forward. I would sign Shishkinov. He has some nasty playmaking skills and could pan out to be something decent. Also check V and Nisimov, left wing 79 at 24. Possibly he could have some good stats. Also, I'd like the veteran presence of Landeskog. Could see if that trade for someone like Zadina is saving you some caps. So, yeah, there's a lot to take from that comment. So, I already replied to him basically about this, but I don't want to bring in really Connor Hellebuyck, because he does probably eat up a lot of the cap space we have, because we only have $8 million. We could technically free up more by getting rid of Zadina, like he was saying, but I really don't know if I want to move Zadina just yet. So as you look here, Connor Hellebuyck wants $6 million, so it would eat up most of our cap space we have left, and we still need to sign like a depth defenseman. So yeah, Connor Hellebuyck, even though he's good, he's probably not really worth that type of money. He might drop off a lot. So we'll probably pick up like an 82 overall, because usually good overall goalies, when I have them at least, they don't simulate that well. So I don't really want to bring him in. Like I feel like he would just drop off to an 84 or something and have like his worst season yet or something with our team. So because we're not like as much of a defensive team as Minnesota was, and that's where he was really good in. So but also he was mentioning to sign, who was it? It was these other guys, the other guys like Trocheck and stuff like that. I'm not gonna bring them in either, because we'd have to get rid of some youngsters to kind of free up those spots for them. But he was mentioning to sign Shishkinov, because he has nasty playmaking skill, which I definitely will be doing that, because Shishkinov, as you can see, is a 77 overall low lead at 20 years of age. He was signed by Colorado last year, but then for some reason they decided to let him go again to free agencies. So we're going to bring this guy in, and he's probably going to play 1 year in the minors, maybe even jump up to the NHL right away next season. But yeah, he's got some pretty good stats, so we're definitely going to give this guy a contract already. He actually wants a three-year, two-way deal, which is actually really nice for a 77. So yeah, that's going to be our first free agent signing. And then he also wanted us to check out Nisimov. Oh, he wants this guy, right? Yeah, Nisimov, 79 and 24, and he's got top 6 potential. He's obviously not going to reach his top 6 potential. He kind of has some really weird statistics, but I still might sign him up anyways, considering he was a second rounder. Like, he's got really good defensive awareness, but his offensive instincts are not that great. Yeah, we're going to sign this guy up, because why not? This guy might end up playing in the NHL over somebody like, who is it? Over like Schulz, I think. We might have to give him a tiny bit more here. Let's just give him 1.3. Colorado's also trying to get him, so maybe we should give him a little bit more. Because Colorado is another one of those teams that are trying to contend for a Stanley Cup right now, so we definitely want to be the one that wins that signing, hopefully. So those are two of the contracts that we're going to be giving out for sure. He was also mentioning the Landeskog deal that I mentioned at the end of last episode, and I don't think I'm going to be doing it just because I feel like Landeskog could drop off, and then he might not be that good for us next season, and I don't want to get rid of Zadina when Zadina I know won't really be dropping off considering he's an 87 at 28, while you go to somebody like Landeskog who is on the trading block. He's an 87 at 35, and he's got 1 year left. So if he's on the block, maybe at the trade deadline, maybe we'll trade for him then. Just because I want to see how he kind of like progresses through the season. So maybe we could trade for him at the deadline. And yeah, also he's a UFA at the end of the season. So maybe he becomes a free agent if he's not retired yet, and then we could just sign him up instead. So right now, I don't think we're going to be bringing in Gabe Landeskog, but we might end up doing so at the deadline if it's something we really want to do. The next comment is from Nick Zajac. He says, the time is now. Spend up in free agency on vets to get you over the hump, trade first round picks, etc. You have drafted so well to get to this point, but you definitely need to make a splash. Which I agree kind of to an extent that we need to make a splash, but at the same time, our roster is so deep that there's not really anything that we could really make ourselves have even more of a splash. Because as you can see, we just got a lot of really good wingers, a lot of good like centermen. Our defense, of course, probably our weakest point, but it has simulated pretty good in the past, and then our goaltending is going to be a little bit average, but that's okay, I think, because we don't really need to have the best goaltending to win a Stanley Cup. Well, we do kind of in a way, but we need to have like 82s instead of like 87 and an 82, because an 87 is not always going to win the Stanley Cup for you, so... but yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying, but we're right up against the cap anyways, so we kind of are all in a sense. And then the final comment is from Alien Pete. He says, nice drafting. Just wondering, are prospects with X Factors more likely to pan out? And are they usually better than non-X Factor players? I have a couple players in franchise mode that have X Factors, and not sure if that means they'll wait a second, I have to click read more for some reason. If they'll for sure pan out. Is it even possible for a player to lose X Factors? So I don't think it's possible for a player to lose X Factors. I think EA was trying to make it so players could gain X Factors and stuff like that, but I don't think they can anymore. I'm not 100% sure with that, because I have no recollection if any of my players have ever gained X Factors or lost any, so I don't think so. And then also in terms of do they pan out better than players without it, and do they usually play better than ones without it? I don't really know, actually. It's kind of hard to tell. You would have to find like really similar players. Like we'd have to find another left wing playmaker that's around the same overall as Agostino and see kind of like a comparison. But I feel like they kind of do to an extent, because Agostino, even though he's a playmaker, he's been playing a lot like kind of like a two-way forward, and he's been doing a lot of good stuff in both ends of the ice. So maybe the X factors do help to an extent, but I'm not 100% sure with that. But anyways, those were the comments we got in the last episode. So now let's get into our other free agent signings, which include bringing in a depth defenseman and a goaltender to play with Peterson. And then we will sim up to next season, see if we get those guys, and then obviously adjust our lines and stuff like that and start the season sim. So the goaltender I'm going to be bringing in, first I was kind of debating between two different goaltenders. The first one I was looking at was Mads Sjogard. Now Mads Sjogard has some pretty good regular season numbers in the AHL. He's also played limited time in the NHL where he's not been really that good during the regular season. But his playoff numbers, he's got one shutout in one NHL game in the playoffs, which is intriguing. But he doesn't really got the amount of experience that I'm looking for, because that doesn't seem like enough experience to say, hey, this guy's going to be a good playoff or regular season goalie for us. I went further down the list, and Stuart Skinner's the one that jumps off the table that I really want, I think. Because as you can see, he's got a winning record during the regular season. It's not the greatest winning record, but he's got 12 shutouts, a 905 save percentage, and a 2.9. And he's also got a lot more experience than somebody like Matt Sjogard. And if we go to the playoff numbers as well, he's got a winning playoff record, which is 14-6-3, with 2 shutouts, a 912, and a 2.89, which is pretty good. Now, he had some bad playoffs with like Montreal, but he still got them all the way up to, I guess that's like the second or third round. So I think he's a decent goalie to bring in. Obviously, he did play with a good Edmonton team right there, and then I guess he played with a good Florida team there too. But I think he would be a solid backup to bring in, or a solid goalie in a way to kind of alternate with Pettersson, and then maybe he becomes our playoff starting goaltender next year. Who knows? Depends on, I guess, who simulates better in the regular season. But Stuart Skinner is going to be our goaltender signing. We'll give him a little bit more money just to make sure he actually accepts with us. And there we go. And then we also just need a depth defenseman, and the depth defenseman I'm going to be bringing in is somebody that I don't know if he actually matches our system, so it's kind of a risk. But he is one of the youngest depth defenders, or he is, I think, the youngest depth defender out there. And yeah, if he actually could help out our system, that would be really good. As you could see, if I could find him. Let me just actually sort this by role, because I don't think I did that yet. Because he is a 23-year-old depth defender, so it's like, might as well, considering he's young, maybe he could become something regular for us at some point. But as you can see right here, it is this Y. Emelin dude. He is a medium top 6 D-man. He only wants 1 year at 800K, and he is a UFA, 23 years of age. We don't know if he's ever really gotten much of a chance before. I don't think he's really played much at all. Yeah, he's only played in the AHL, so we don't really know what he could do at the NHL level just yet, but I am going to just bring him in since he's young, and maybe he could become something for us. He wants a two-way deal as well, which is good. It saves us more cap. And yeah, those are going to be basically our signings in this off season. So let's advance a few days and see if we could get those guys. And hopefully we do, and that should help us out going into next season, especially bringing in somebody like Stuart Skinner. And Stuart Skinner's going to accept awesome. Emelin, I should say, accepts as well. So there's that depth defenseman. And then the Nisimov and Shishkinov are both going to accept as well, which is good because that gives us a little bit more depth in terms of our forwards. Now, we probably will have to have like Schulz or somebody in the minors next season, which kind of sucks, but it kind of makes sense because some of them aren't really that ready to be a full-time NHLer yet, I don't think. So let's begin to sim to next season and see what our lines look like and all that stuff. If we could get these notifications to stop popping up, I might just make a jump cut to the start of next season, so I will see you guys in a second. Okay guys, so our lineup looks pretty interesting. I didn't really make too much changes, but there is a lot of good players in the AHL. Like the AHL team might be the most stacked I've had it in a very long time. But anyways, I'll show you guys that in a second. So first line has Agostino, Hayton, and Genther. Second line, Shelley, Farinacci, and Zadina. And then a third line, Sadikov, Geeky, and Lawrence. And fourth line has Schulz with McGillis and Tracy. The reason being Schulz is there is because Varlamov isn't actually a super great fit for that fourth line, so he has to be scratched, which I don't really like. He is listed though as a depth forward, so hopefully he doesn't lose any morale. And then yeah, so Polvyov as well is going to be one of our depth options, and we do have Emelin as our depth defenseman. Defensively, I didn't address anything, but it will probably stay like this. Yeah, I'll probably stay like this. So Chikrin and Soderstrom, Samorukov, Dobson, and Tukinen and Schneider. And then our goaltending tandem is going to be Pettersson and Skinner. I didn't realize Pettersson jumped up to an 84, but it might be statistical. So at the start of the season, he might actually be a lower overall. But yeah, that's basically what our team looks like. Pretty solid, I would say. And then in the AHL, this is kind of nuts. We do have Gallagher down there, who's a low elite we signed a year ago. He's getting close to being an NHL-ready player, so that's kind of nuts. We also have Shishkinov, who's the low elite we literally just signed. He's a 79, listed as a depth option. This guy should be in the NHL technically, but he doesn't really fit the fourth line as good as somebody like Schulz does, so that's why he's down there in the minors for now. We also got like Bykov, who's got top 6 potential. We got Koltsov, who's got low top 6, and he's a 78. And Nisimov, who we literally just signed as well. That's listed as a fourth liner. He's going to be playing in the AHL as well, just because he's not as good of a fit for that fourth line. But we could always call him up at some point. And then Vincent Dalmal is also down there. So our AHL team is absolutely stacked on forwards, and then defensively it's stacked as well. As you can see, Sasaki is now in the AHL, and he might end up cracking our NHL lineup next season. But he's down there. Guerrero's down there. He's got low elite potential. Ladipov is still down there as well. So yeah, this team is pretty filthy, and also goaltending-wise, Wallstead and Hornquist. So yeah, this team should win a Calder Cup again. But yeah, they'll probably be a first-round exit just based on that. So it should be interesting though to see how this team simulates. I might need to make some changes here to this power play unit. There we go. because Shelly should always be on the first unit. I didn't address this power play yet, so always need to make a little bit of adjustments to it just to make sure it works as good as possible. Yeah, that works better. Okay, perfect. That is good to go, and I need Shelly also to be on the top unit if I can. I just want to make sure these have good chemistry. But it doesn't look like these have great chemistry anymore, our special teams, but it shouldn't hold us down. If it does, then we'll definitely make adjustments. But for now, that's what our team looks like going into this season, and I'm very excited to see what this team could do. Hopefully we could get off to a good start again like last year. And like I said, if we need to, we could always make trades and stuff like that at the deadline for people like Landeskog to kind of help us out a little bit. So let's start simulating the season and see what happens. We're going to sim probably to January the 1st, so a little bit of simulating in this episode just because I want to see how this team does ahead of time. So maybe I won't go to January the 1st, maybe I will go to December the 1st, I don't know. And maybe I'll go to January the 1st. I don't think that's too far in the season to kind of see how we're doing. But yeah, hopefully we have a good season. Because coming off 2 first-round exits, it's kind of a bummer, and hopefully this team can kind of turn it around a little bit and get back to that Cup Finals, obviously. So preseason-wise, we go 5-0-2, which is a good sign, kind of, I guess. Zadina led the team in points with 10 points in 7 games. Hopefully he could do that again during the regular season, because obviously he's been kind of a streaky player. He's been picking it up as of late, so I'd really like him to start doing stuff because he's making $9 million, which is more than Calvin Shelley is. So at some point, Zadina might end up being trade bait just because we need to free up cap space and whatnot. So we'll end up seeing if that's something we have to do at the trade deadline this year or maybe at the draft this upcoming offseason. But let's continue to simulate and see how we do to start the season off. We have 2 road games to start it off, and we lose 1 and win 1. Okay, guess I'll take that. Dalmo's already been injured. Damn, that's the lowly that literally is playing in his first AHL season, so... And Stuart Skinner's already broken his toe, so maybe we signed the wrong goalie. Maybe he's too fragile. That's not good. That's not too long term, at least, but not a good start for Stuart Skinner. That means Wallsted's going to have to get called up, and he's going to have to go through waivers, which hopefully doesn't get claimed, but I mean, at least we have Hornquist down there. And Wallsted kind of deserves to play in the NHL to an extent. Like, he hasn't had great NHL numbers, but still. So Wallsted's going to get an opportunity to play again, and that's going to sign us a random goalie in Koltsov. Interesting. So we'll see what happens here. And of course this simulation thing is going to stop, so I can't see it. And we're 1-1-2, so kind of starting off the season really weird. But that's okay, because at least it's not late in the season. And Stuart Skinner's already returned, which is good. But now we got to send down Wallsted, which I'm kind of scared he's going to get claimed. He was actually pretty good when he was up here, so... Or maybe that's in the AHL, I don't know. But Wallsted, you're going to go back down. And I don't think he was claimed, which is good. Yeah, he wasn't claimed. He's a good AHL goalie, but NHL teams apparently do not need him. So hopefully Stuart Skinner does not get re-injured, because we don't need him to keep getting injured, considering we literally just signed him. Hopefully this episode isn't too long. And Dalmo is already back as well for the AHL. So we'll take out Arnsby, who's another top 9 prospect that isn't really panning out. Okay, let's continue to sim, and look at that. Stuart Skinner breaks his toe again. Literally, this guy needs to stop breaking his toe. And call up Wallsted again. Okay, maybe we can't simulate up to January the 1st in this episode because we're running into injury troubles with Stuart Skinner right off the bat. Maybe I should have signed Sogard instead, or Shogard. Because maybe Shogard would have been a lot less injury prone. Because right now Stuart Skinner seems to be like that. And let's see, let's stop the simulation. We're 5-2-2 now. The Caps are 0-8 on the season. Jeez, they're off to a terrible start. Let's continue to simulate. And we beat them, so now the Caps are literally 0-9 to start the season. That might be the worst start I've seen an AI team have. But we're off to a good start, at least in the NHL. 7-2-3. There's another loss. Now we're on a little bit of a losing streak. I don't really like that. But I mean, if we simulate too good, then we're not going to be a cup contending team. So, how's Wallsted playing? Not that great. We'll send him down again. Will he get claimed this time around? No, he will not. And Stuart Skinner, please stay healthy. Please stay healthy. If you break your toe for the third time, I am going to be kind of mad. And we will throw Wallstead back in down there in the AHL, and boom, that is good to go. Let's continue to simulate. There's a nice 2-1 win. We're having some pretty good defensive games, and Skinner's back to full health, which is good. Hopefully he doesn't suffer any more injuries this season, because I'm already kind of tired of his injury troubles that he's had. But did I just see that? Yeah, Shishkinov is up to an 80 overall now. This guy literally deserves to be in NHL. Look at his passing. 2 goals and 12 assists. I wish there was a way to find to get these guys in. Like, I mean, Sadikov could be dealt eventually to put one of those guys in the NHL, but I don't really know. Because Sadikov's usually a good goal scorer, or at least he was in his first season. But we're having some really good defensive games this season to start off with. Like, a lot of our games are 1 goal against or 2 goals against. So we are probably going to be one of the best defensive teams in the league, I'm guessing, once we get to stop simulating. 13-5-3 at December the 1st. Let's do one more month, which might be a little bit too much simulation, but I really just want to see how this team could do by the halfway point pretty much of the season. So the Caps have fired their head coach. Took them long enough after that really bad start that they had. And yeah, we're having phenomenal defensive games. Like, we're allowing like 1 goal a game in some of these. We'll just replace Semyonov. I don't really care too much about some of those AHL guys. Yeah, we're having phenomenal defensive games. I don't know if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, but literally every game almost is 1 or 2 goals against. So, yeah, this team is probably going to be one of the best defensive teams in the NHL, I'm guessing, at this point. Which is kind of scary because I feel like we're just going to blow it in the playoffs. There's a couple bad defensive games. Yeah, really bad defensive games. Because we had just allowed 10 goals to Colorado, but Colorado is one of the better teams in the league, so. Of course, as I say, we're playing good defensively. We start playing bad defensively, and we're 24-9-3 at January the 1st, so this team is definitely primed up to make the playoffs again. And currently, Agostino leads us with 37 points in 36 games, so our offense might not be that great, but our defense seems to probably be our best strength. And we are currently one of the best teams in the league. Let's take a look at our player stats and team stats so far for this season, just to see what are we doing good at so far this year. Currently, we are 4th best in the NHL, only 2 points still behind Columbus. Goals for per game wise, right now we are the 2nd best offensive team, so maybe not. Maybe we just have really good depth scoring this year. And in goals against per game wise, we are not the best defensive team, but I thought we were. Maybe it's because of the last few games that we had recently, but we are still top 6 in the league with 2.75, which is pretty good. Power play is also clicking pretty good, 21.7%. And our penalty kill right now is also clicking pretty good at 86.5. So everything's pretty much simulating pretty good at this point. We're a way better road team than home team right now, which is interesting. Let's take a look at our player stats. Didn't mean to go back to that. Maybe we're getting good goal scoring from like Shelley and stuff like that. That's helping us out. So far, Hayton's got 27 points through 36 games. That's pretty good. Geeky and Farinacci also have been pretty good as well. So our depth scoring on center seems to be pretty solid. 23 points apiece for them. Is Farinacci not getting any power play time anymore? I don't think he is. I don't know if he likes that or not. Seems like he's okay. But I don't think he's on the power play anymore because he doesn't have any power play points, which is kind of questionable considering we do have him signed for 4 more years at 8.25. So maybe we should find a way to put him into the power play a little bit. Like, I know Geeky is a good overall player as well, but left wing wise, Agostino's been great, 37 points in 36 games. Zadina's been really good too, 35 points in 36 games, so it's good we didn't deal him away yet. Genther's been really good, 31 points. Lawrence has been really good, 31 points. Yeah, we're definitely having really good depth scoring this year. Tracy, 19 points. Schul's 16 points is pretty solid for a 4th liner. And McGill's 13 points. Nice. And then Sadikov and Shelley are both off to a good goal scoring start, but Sadikov is starting to score goals again, just like he did a few years ago, which is really good. Shelley's kind of off to his worst start yet, I think, because that's 15 goals in 36 games. That means he might be on pace for like a 30-something goal season, but usually he has really good second halves of the season, but this is like the 1st or 2nd year of his long contract, so that's a little bit weird, but yeah, it looks like Sadikov is bouncing back from last year's troubles. Because last year he only scored 22 goals after having 40 goals in his first season, so He might end up hitting 40 again in this season, which would be good. Defensively, so far, Soderstrom has been our best defenseman, which is kind of weird. Chikrin's been really good. Samorukov and Dobson have been elite defensively, plus 28 and plus 23. And then Tukinen 9 points in even 0, and Schneider 5 points in plus 3. So, looks like our top 6 pairing hasn't been as good defensively, but it's okay. And then goalie-wise, so far, Stefan Pettersson's been really good in his first full season as an NHL starter. His ELC comes to an end this offseason, so he might end up being expensive, but 27-3 with a 9.12 and a 2.67 right now. And Stuart Skinner has been pretty solid as a backup, so that's pretty nice. Let me take a quick look at the entire league at this halfway point, just because I want to kind of see who's leading. So Yip's leading at points. Goals right now is Matvey Michkov. Best defenseman so far is Cale Makar and Boquist. Best goalie so far is Jeremy Swayman in terms of wins, of course, our former goalie, but Pettersson's right behind him. If Pettersson ends up winning a Vezina this year, it'd be pretty nice. And then best rookie so far is Kent Fiddler in New Jersey. Interesting. So that is that. I don't think there's really anything we should be doing in next episode in terms of changing his team, but we could. I will take a look at the trade block as well. Yeah, let's just take a look at the trading block right now, just to see what's out there for next episode. But I don't really know if this team needs to make much changes, because we do got those guys in the minors. There's like 4 guys that are like 78 plus overall that could all end up being called up at some point if we really need that. But then again, like I said, if we don't make trades, then we might have less of a chance to win the Stanley Cup based on this game from the last 2 seasons, because I haven't made trades in a few years, and it's kind of we've kind of regretted it in the postseason. Like, there is some good players out there if we want to make trades. If Landeskog is still on the block, maybe he's something that we want to bring in to give us a little bit more depth scoring or something like that. There's Appleton, no. And looks like Landeskog might have been dealt, or he'd been taken off the block by Colorado, because Colorado might be in the playoff spot right now. They more than likely are, right? Because they did take us out a few years ago, right? I think. Yeah, there's definitely some good players out there. Heiskanen on 1 year left, but we don't really have a lot of contract space, so we'd have to get rid of somebody making a decent amount in order to bring in one of these big players, probably that making $5 million plus. Jonathan Berggren looks like a low-risk, kind of high-reward type of player, but he doesn't really fit our system, which kind of sucks, because he's not making that much, and he's an 81. Other than that, there's Mikey Anderson, Tyler Johnson, JT Comfort. Yeah, there's a lot of good players on the block again, which is intriguing. But once again, like I said, some of these guys will have to get rid of cap on our team in order to bring them in, if we wanted to bring them in, because a lot of these guys are making over $5 million. So I guess the AI is just trying to get rid of bad contracts that they think are bad. 3 years at 1.7 is not bad for Kerfoot, but he's 34 years old. Philadelphia's got Gurionov, but 3 years left. Fabry, 5 years. Connor Garland with 1 year is not bad. Bring Connor Garland back to Arizona. I don't really know if there's a place we could fit him in. He does actually fit our second line. I mean, we could get rid of Genther and just bring in Garland, but Genther's been good this year. So, but it would be funny to bring back Connor Garland to Arizona to win a Stanley Cup. Anything else interesting? Colton Parayko, 2 years. Vesalainen. Damn, Vesalainen's contract's not that good. Evander Kane, no thank you. Don't need no locker room cancer. Hedman, 1 year left at $11 million. Jeez, that's a lot of money. I mean, if we had the cap space, Victor Hedman might be decent, because he's an 81 now only, though. Yeah, he probably wouldn't be worth that. He's dropped off a lot. If he was still like an 86 or something like that, he'd probably be worth it, but I'm not sure. Josh Norris. Yeah, there's definitely guys that we could get for more depth scoring, but we have really good depth scoring as is. And like I said, we do got guys in the minors we could call up for depth if we really need to. Adam Gaudette's there. We had him, I think, a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But that's what's available on the trading block. And then finally, I want to also show you guys the contract situation again. And also, I want to take a brief look at the AHL stats. But as you can see, these are who is up this offseason. So there's some pretty big ones. Barrett Hayton might end up leaving this team. Noah Dobson. There's also Lawrence, who's going to need a decent amount of money. He's off to a really good start this year, so I definitely think bringing him back is a good thing. Same with McGillis. Tracy's still there, we could bring back. But then again, Tracy might be somebody that gets replaced by an AHL guy, so maybe not. Tukinen definitely will come back. Schneider probably will come back. And then, yeah, there's a lot of AHL guys as well that need contracts. Goalie-wise, Stefan Pettersson's probably the biggest. Right now, he's trying to ask for over $7 million. And then Stuart Skinner, obviously, doesn't want that much right now. And then Wallstead as well. So that is that. And let's take a quick look at the AHL stats. I'm not going to go to the actual stats screen. I just want to take a look quickly at who's been doing what down there. Looks like everybody's doing stuff down there. Gallagher's been pretty good. Shishkinov's been really good. I would really like to get him in the NHL, but there's not really anywhere I could slot him in unless I got rid of somebody like on our team, like on our forward core and like the third line or something like that. Who else has got a lot of points? A lot of players on this team actually have points, so it's good to see that our AHL team's simulating good too. Like Anisimov should be in the NHL technically as well. He's up to an 80. Defensively, Ortmeyer has been really good, but he might end up becoming a late bloomer. He's a 76, low top 4 now. He does have X factor, so hopefully he makes it. And Sasaki off to a pretty good start in his first AHL season, 17 points in 36 games. I don't know if he's getting any power play time or not. Gotta take a look at that, because he's an offensive defenseman. So, and goalie wise, how's Hornquist been? Pretty solid. Looks like our AHL team's doing really good. But let me go to special teams. Yeah, he's not getting any power play time. So I think what we're going to do here is move Vladipov down. Gallagher could play there. And Koltsov could go back to there. I'm going to take Mayorov off. And Sasaki needs to play on that power play because Sasaki... No, he's not an offensive defenseman, but he's getting offensive points. We'll put him on the power play anyways. Just because he is putting up decent numbers, because why not? But our AHL team is pretty stacked, so it's really hard to give everybody like a decent amount of ice time down there. So that is that. And quickly, let's just do one more thing before I forget, which is progress reports. Looks like we're getting a lot of statistical in the NHL, which is not really a surprise. In the system-wise, getting a lot of growth from everybody pretty much, I think. Yep. Not that much growth from actually some of the low elites, but it's okay. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Arizona Coyotes franchise mode. So in next episode, we will simulate the rest of the season. We might make some trades if you guys think it's necessary. But this team's off to a great start, and hopefully it could only go up from here. So let me know what you guys think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.